Welcome to Auntie Mel Mel Life Unfiltered, the podcast where we say the things everyone else whispers, feels, or pretends they're totally fine about. Around here, nothing is too awkward, too messy, or too, oh my god, did she really just say that? Yes, I did. This is your space where real talk, real stories, real emotions, and the kind of honesty that makes you laugh, cry, and heal a little. Sometimes all at once. So grab your drink, get comfy, and let's dive in. Because life's too short to sugarcoat it, and I'm not here to do that anyway. Welcome to Auntie Mel Mel Life Unfiltered. Let's get into it. Welcome to Auntie Mel Mel Life Unfiltered. Today's guest is Matt Melvin, a survivor, author, and advocate focused on resilience, compassion, and being seen beyond assumptions. Matt is the author of Bullied Behind Bars, where he shares his lived experience with trauma, identity, and survivorship, including a near-death experience in 2015 that shifted how he views life and healing. This conversation is about humanity, mental health, and resilience. Just real life and real stories. Matt, welcome to Auntie Mel Mel Life Unfiltered.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. When someone asks you who you are, how do you usually answer?
I'm a thriver, author, activist, change maker.
Yes, those are some powerful words. What made you feel ready to share your story publicly and write Bullied Behind Bars?
I don't want to have anybody go through the torment, trauma, stigma of the prison system as I did. I wanted to let the world know from firsthand knowledge what goes on behind bars. Shows like 60 Days In sensationalize the prison system.
Yes, that's very true. Your identity as a survivor, what does that word mean to you personally?
To me, it means recognizing where I came from and where I am now.
Yes. Yes, that's a very important. If you want to share a little bit about your book or as much as you want to share on your story or journey, I'll let you share that in your own words.
I grew up in Tingsboro, Massachusetts, bullied throughout almost all of my childhood. Had a best friend that lived right behind us. The school bully lived next to us. So it was an interesting paradigm of complications. In 1988, my parents made the unfortunate decision to move up into Vermont, and it was the worst mistake they could have made. Vermont is very isolating, it's hard to meet people, and it's a very toxic place to live.
So once you got to Vermont, what started to happen there? What led you to being, sentenced to go to prison?
Unresolved anger, resentment, hatred towards people who have wronged me in the past, not taking therapy very seriously, being forced to go to therapy, allowing unforgiveness to live in my mind and not taking the right steps. My trying to sell a car was not the first example of theft. I had
Hmm.
run off without paying for gas, walked out of restaurants without paying. All of these small crimes that were unresolved led to the impulsivity of working at a car dealership in 2004, not being paid my commissions, and feeling once again that I'm being taken advantage of and impulsively choosing to try to sell one of their cars.
Mm, yes. I could see how that all of that would lead up to that and, just the anger around, not getting your commissions and everything completely can definitely add to the feelings and trauma you're already experiencing. Have people ever made assumptions about you that didn't reflect your live experience?
Yes, people make assumptions all the time. I've had people say you can't be gay and be a Christian. That is absolutely not true. That is
Mhm.
a cult-like mentality. Every cult condemns homosexuality.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yes, that's so very true. What was the hardest part of putting your story into words?
Going through the pain of being back, experiencing all the bullying, and trying to get out my message without using from an unfiltered perspective.
Mhm.
In other words,
Absolutely.
what would the reader really want to hear versus what do I want the reader to hear?
Yeah. True. Very true. Absolutely. Your near death experience in 2015 was a major moment in your life. How did that change you?
I was almost killed by an out of control driver driving 72 miles an hour, which is pretty slow. I've been known to go 130. No guts, no glory.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
was the moment for me that I believe God was drawing a line in the sand and saying, you're either going to do my will or you're going to do your own will. And you're going to go through this vicious cycle of going in prison, getting out, reoffending, and it's going to be a vicious cycle. And I was out of control.
Mhm.
And definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. And I knew that my life up until then was not going the way I wanted it to go.
Mhm.
I needed to stop lying, stealing, cheating, being manipulative, and start living for God. And ever since I started living for God, my life has dramatically changed. My
Yes.
discipline, I spent a lot of time in solitary confinement because the inmates would lie to the guards and tell them I tried to proposition them. Well, the facility might have had my body, they didn't have my mind. And I was really able
Mhm.
to sharpen my saw, read my Bible daily, exercise, fast, and pray. And those disciplines have come out of prison, and I'm still doing those disciplines today. I know so many people that say, Matt, can you pray for me because I'm not reading my Bible or I'm not praying? And my answer is no, because that is totally within somebody's control.
Mhm.
Prayer is meant for things that are out of somebody else's control. Look, if you want to send me a 24-hour a day, what you do minute by minute, I'll write back to you and tell you what you need to get rid of, because I guarantee you there's things that anybody's doing that are not constructive. We all have the same
Mhm.
24 hours a day. It's how we use those 24 hours a day.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so very true. And that's a recurring theme on this. It's on you to change. It's on you to want to make the changes. As you said, you can pray for somebody, but that's not going to do anything. They need to make the steps themselves and want to make the changes to make their life better and to reconnect with God however they feel fit on their side as well. So that's very important. During your prison sentence, was there anybody that was there for you, or was it all just another place to be bullied and picked on.
I met some incredible volunteers, Deacon Jerry Schilla, Pastor Mo Wilbur. Both men gave up their time to come in and teach Bible, which in a prison system is very, very difficult because
Mhm,
the individual that comes in needs to be I would say an expert on the Bible, because a lot of inmates will try to push whatever woke ideology they have that the Bible says, and they have to have a conviction with them that what they're saying is accurate. And
mhm,
unfortunately, it's not built for every person to volunteer, because you have to have that conviction and know what you're talking about. But it's just like everything else. In order to talk about something, you have to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you're going to just spin your tires on ice.
mhm.
And,
Absolutely.
the other thing that I will share is, because I did the prison system, I was able to see cults like Scientology, Christian Science, Jehovah's Witness, all of them came in, and I went to every single session because I wanted to see what they're saying, because I can't
Mhm,
help somebody if I don't know what on earth this cult is trying to push. So I was becoming as knowledgeable and taking in as much information as I could because I had a lot of
Yeah.
free time.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very important. Seeing all sides of it, like you said, somebody may have come to you with a question that used to be a Jehovah Witness, and you hadn't known what their belief was or how that worked, and you went and saw all the different sides of it. So yeah, and as you said, you had time and you could learn more. So that is one plus. I would say you get to experience a lot of new learning experiences on that. So yes, thank you for sharing that with us. How do grief and mental health show up for you today?
They still show up. I just have better tools. Until I started forgiving myself first and then forgiving others, I wasn't really on the healing journey.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
was checking boxes similar to when I was going to church Sunday and going back to the world on every other day and then asking for God to forgive me, but again, doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. And the way my life was going, it was chaotic, out of control.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's important too, is grief is always going to be there, trauma is always going to be there. You always have to work through your mental health. It doesn't fully ever go away. As you mentioned, you just learn more tools and more coping mechanisms that work for you personally. I've had a wide range of different therapists on here. I've had peer support recovery. I've had EMDR therapists. I've had somatic healing and arts therapy. So there's so many different avenues to everyone, and everyone needs to try to take that, as you said earlier, on themselves to want to be better. And it's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it won't forever be gone, but it is something that you need to work on for yourself. What's something you wish more people understood about trauma and survivorship?
Everybody goes through trauma. The people that I find that thrive talk about it. They don't isolate. They don't think, oh, my circumstance is so much different than everybody else that nobody will understand what I'm going through.
Right.
Until I started doing men's work in 2022 and seeing other men share vulnerably on carpet, unfiltered, no judgment. I mean, there's of course judgment, but we try to remove that judgment out of our system and really seeing common themes with men because a lot of men don't talk about their problems. Suck it up,
Mhm.
buttercup. They stuff it. I stuffed it for a long, long time.
Mhm.
And it came out like an explosion, like a volcano erupting. And
Mhm.
I saw it. The last weekend I staffed, I saw a man that was staffing that was so full of anger, rage, and he had not dealt with it properly. And he was scary because his face, his emotions throughout the whole weekend was the same.
Yeah, that is so important. And I've had a lost dad on here, and he started a grief group specifically for men because of that. Because men do feel like they have to keep it all in. It's on them to keep it all in. They can't grieve or they can't process their trauma. And as you mentioned, it will cause you to explode. So, it needs to be more stigmatized, more open that men can talk about their feelings. And it's so important that you share that with your story and are there for others as well as all the other guys that I've had on here. It's awesome to see the world be more open because men need that. And I try to bring that up as much as possible. Men's mental health is so much important as just as women. So
You can't depend on your partner for all of your problems. If you're a
yes,
man, you need to find men to support you. If you're a woman, you need to find women to support you and talk about the issues. What an experience with a man versus a woman are completely different.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, that's so important. Your partner can be there for you, but they can't fully understand everything that you're going through. Every sex is different. Everybody feels things differently. So, as you said, it's so important to find that group, whether it's through your church or through some kind of support group or mental health. There are groups out there for men and women. What tools or habits have helped you keep going during harder seasons?
Reading my Bible, fasting, praying, exercising. All of these disciplines have helped me to be the man I am today.
Yes, yes, that's so important.
Procrastination, I know so many people that procrastinate. All of these disciplines need to be done in the morning. Because what happens, just like, when I was in prison, I would hear this from drug addicts. And I was sort of in a similar situation. I just need one more fix. I just need to drive 130 one more time, and then it will be out of me. And that one turns into two, three, four, five, and then it never ends. And if you are putting off today something tomorrow that you can do today, it will snowball.
Mhm. Yes, yes, for sure, absolutely. It's all about accountability. As we've mentioned in this episode, it seems to be a reoccurring theme. It is on you to make the changes. It's on you to want to make the changes. And as you said, it's so important. Just get up and do it. I personally, I'm more of a morning person myself. Get up and work out, do everything in the morning. It gets you going for the morning. If you take your time and procrastinate, you're not going to do it. And as you said, it's just going to keep being pushed off and pushed off. So just get up and have some accountability for yourself. You're the only one that can change your life and make it better for you.
If you need to find an accountability partner, you can find an accountability partner. But my thoughts are you should be able to do this all on your own. If
Yes.
you're relying on somebody else to give you feedback or hold you accountable, to me, there's a discipline issue that needs to be addressed immediately.
Yes, that's a very good point. Absolutely. Compassion is a big part of why you share your story. What does compassion look like in your daily life?
Reaching out to somebody, talking to them, trying to listen without putting my spin on things. And, in my years of doing men's work, what I've learned is ask a man or a woman, are you looking for support or advice? Because for me, there's nothing that drives me crazy than somebody trying to give me advice when I was looking for support. And I find that men that have kids tend to do this a lot and they can't turn it off because they think I'm their child.
Mhm.
And I very rarely will ask somebody for advice. And I don't mean to it's not the ego. I've just been through so much that I'm always asked, what advice would you give? How would you help this person? That the person is probably not going to know the advice that's going to work.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is so very important. It's more important to have someone to listen. As you said, 9 times out of 10, we're not coming to you for advice. We just need somebody to be there, hear your story, hear what you're saying, and I could absolutely see and have experienced that myself. Men with children, they want to give you advice versus listening, so that is such a valid point. Have you seen moments where sharing your story helps someone else feel less alone?
No question. I've been on interviews where folks were actually in the room, which is fun. I kind of wish they were on a panel so that they could
Mhm.
ask questions directly because I love being on the hot seat. I never know where the conversation is going, and I love to see people share what's going on with them. And look, I believe that anybody should find friends that are working on themselves. If you
Mhm.
find some person that thinks that they're perfect and there's nothing wrong with them, I avoid them at all costs. And the other
Absolutely.
thing that I think is important is if there's a disagreement in a friendship and your friend points the finger at you and takes no ownership, that is and I've had this happen several times. I avoid that person completely because in almost all conversations, there is fault on both sides. So for
Mhm.
me, I need to make sure my side of the street is clean.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important. As you said, I personally, I ended a 30-year friendship. She was more like a sister than a best friend because it was always like that. I should have ended it years before, but yes, she was always the me. It was always her. Nothing was ever her fault. Everything was always about her. So she wanted me to change as who I was as a person. I couldn't be the real me. So that's truly not a real friendship. You need to be around people that inspire you and that are working on themselves, bettering their lives, and you guys can all support each other and be there for each other through your journeys. That is so important.
The other piece that I think is really important is to be authentic. Don't
Hmm.
wear masks.
Yes.
This one particular friend, he made a criticism that I'm very negative. Well, that could partially be true, but I live in reality. I don't live in fantasy world. And if this individual wants me to lie and sugarcoat reality, I'm not going to do it. Look, this individual lives a very privileged life. He's had the same job for a very, very long time. He owns his own business, and his experience is drastically different than mine.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. 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 Yeah, you cannot have friends like that. And I'm completely with you. That's the whole basis of this podcast, real, honest, unfiltered, raw, everybody sharing their stories and their life experiences without that filter. That doesn't help anybody to always have that filter on or to never be real. We all, as you said, need to be authentic. We need to share our stories authentically, be open and honest, and we're not for everybody. And the right people come into your life, and the right people will hear your story. No, they're not alone. That's the biggest thing I want out of this is there's so many different things that happen to people that people don't talk about, and they feel so alone. So I just want this platform for others to come on and share and let people know that they're not alone in their journeys.
There's a song called Not For Everyone by Brothers Osborne. It really resonates with me.
Oh, that's a good one. I do love Brothers Osborne. I don't know if I remember that particular song, but I will definitely check that out again. What do you hope listeners take away from your story?
To talk about their problems, to not stuff it, to find a good tribe of, if you're a men, excuse me, if you're a woman. Not to say that you can't have friends of the opposite sex, you can. It's just they're not going to come to the world understanding everything that you're going through. Finding friends that are not just takers. There's sometimes you come to take space and other times you come to make space.
What do you say to someone who feels unseen or misunderstood right now?
You have to first love yourself, accept your faults, forgive yourself, and then you can forgive others to
Yes,
find a good tribe of people that you can talk to.
absolutely. Absolutely. What else would you like to share about your book or your story that we haven't went over today? Those are all of my main questions for you. Are there any other messages you would like to share with us or talk about today?
Be compassionate.
All right, guys, I'm just popping back in here really quick to wrap this episode up. We did have a little bit of a technical hiccup toward the end of our recording, so we didn't get to do our usual rapid fire or proper goodbye. But honestly, I think this conversation said exactly what it needed to say. Matt, if you're listening back, thank you again for sharing your story, your honesty, and your perspective. It really means a lot, and I know it's going to resonate with so many people. And to anyone listening, if you saw yourself in any part of this episode, you are not alone. Your story matters, even if it doesn't have a perfect or polished ending. I'll have all of Matt's information linked in the show notes so you can connect with him and learn more. Thank you guys as always for being here and for supporting Auntie Mel Mel Life Unfiltered. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. All right, friends, that's a wrap on today's episode of Auntie Mel Mel Life Unfiltered. Thank you for spending this time with me and stepping into the real, the raw, the messy, and the magical, because you know we don't do surface level here. If this episode hit home, made you laugh, or helped you feel a little less alone, go ahead and follow the podcast and share it with someone who might need it too. And remember, you are never too much, never too little, and never alone on this wild ride. I'll meet you back here next time for more truth, more feels, and more unfiltered goodness. This is Auntie Mel Mel signing off. Stay real, stay kind, and stay unfiltered.